Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday here on Birds 365, getting you ready for Week 12 in the NFL. The 8-2 Philadelphia Eagles taking on the 5-5 LA Rams in an NFC battle. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Football Friday, brother?
Doing well. Finally feels like football. A little bit chilly out. You got a snow game last night. And, of course, the Eagles, just as it's starting to feel like football, they're going to Los Angeles. So,
yeah, right. They get to watch that, and then they get to go cozy up in that LA sunshine and take on the LA Rams. What'd you take away from that game last night? I didn't catch the full thing. I had some business to tend to. But when I turned it on, my first thing was, "Holy shit! Look at the snow!"
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. It was one of those games where it was really thick, heavy snow.
Yeah, it's always fun to see a snow game.
Yeah, it is.
But I got to tell you, that's social media, man. I'm on there this morning. I'm like, there's people complaining about snow games. That's not football weather. Perfect football weather is a dome. And I'm like, what do you? God, people just live to be contrarians just for the sake of being contrarians. Obviously, everybody enjoys it. No, that's the point. You want to see somebody fight through the elements. That's what football's been about for many, many years. And as we shift towards warmer weather, we don't get to see it as much. And every time you see it, everybody gets excited. It's not the worst thing in the world, especially on Thursday night. But another example of a divisional game that you think Pittsburgh's having a great season, Cleveland's going to tank and this and that. And one situation, Pittsburgh is down their left tackle and they're playing Myles Garrett, the Cleveland Browns, and Myles has 3 sacks and they go steal a game. And that's what happens in the NFL.
No doubt.
One little shift on the chessboard can be the difference in a game. And obviously Jameis Winston made a bunch of plays. They're better with anybody playing quarterback than Deshaun Watson. So, I mean, that's one of the great downfalls in football history.
Yeah, he is a funny guy to watch, Jameis Winston, with the interviews and stuff. I mean, he is the whole spectacle. It is funny watching him.
Yeah, and he's his problem. He's got talent. Everybody knows he's got talent. Yeah. I mean, former number 1 overall pick, but always didn't take care of the football. Had that YOLO mentality. Just turned it over consistently. Never been able to turn off that spigot, so to speak. So, he can do some things, and obviously it's still a bad season for Cleveland. But when you beat one of your top rivals in a snow game, at least it gets the fan base excited for a couple hours.
Yeah, no, it was a good game, though. It was a classic football game, and it made the most of it because, you're playing a 2-8 team. Obviously, it's a good division rivalry, but you play a 2-8 team, not many tune in. And then you get the snow element, and, all of a sudden it's a classic game to the finish, which was awesome to see. John, let's dive into this Eagles-Rams matchup. We'll have Scott Grayson coming up at 8:20. Hopefully. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here this morning. Real Zeal, Slagger, B-Mo, Brian Fleming, Fred, Dez. Appreciate all it. Keith Johnson, good to see everybody this morning. Make sure you guys smash that like button for us. We've been crushing it on the likes here on Birds 365, and the show is doing very good. So big thanks to all of you guys in the chat. Johnny Mac, diving into this game, man. Let's go to injuries first, because now it looks like potentially Devontae Smith could miss this game. He was out again at practice yesterday. What do you know on the Eagles' injuries right now?
Yeah, Devontae's the only one I'm concerned about, and I'll be down there later this morning. This will be the final day. If he's not out there today, it's pretty clear he's probably going to be ruled out.
Yeah.
Later this afternoon. But he's one of those players. I go back to last week, from when Jordan Mailata got injured, I'm like, they're not going to bring him back on Washington week, on a short week where they don't even practice. They're gonna take the mini bye. Logically, give him the extra week. You get a full practice, then he'll be back against the Rams. And they're like, nope, he's ready to go. Throw him out there against Washington, and he played beautifully. Point I'm trying to make with that is, if he's clear, he's cleared. He's going to play. It doesn't matter if he misses practice Wednesday and Thursday. He's one of those guys. He's one of those deference players, I like to call him. If he's cleared, he's going to play. And he's been dealing with this hamstring for a number of weeks now. Obviously, it's not serious. If it were serious hamstring, they wouldn't have played him, as you saw earlier in the season with AJ and Dallas and Jordan. So he's been fighting through it, but he was limping. And that's, we're talking about a long time now, over a week, when he was limping coming off the field, because that was the Thursday night game against Washington. So just because you're hurting a little bit after the game doesn't mean you can't play or you can't move forward. That's this time of year in the NFL. Maybe they were just trying to manage him through the week, but we'll get those answers today. If he's not out there today, I think he's going to be ruled out. And look, I mean, this passing offense, we've been talking about it all week here, is not living up to its expectations. And it's not going to help if they don't have Devontae Smith.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's Rams secondary is really, when you look at this defense, it's who you probably want to pick on from an offensive perspective. We will see what the Birds can do. John, this has been lingering, though, for a couple of weeks with Devontae Smith. I don't want to say, is it worth? I mean, I don't know how close he is. You haven't seen him. You didn't see him at all yesterday, did you?
Nope. Moved into the bubble.
2 days now. You didn't see him at all. Normally, the dudes who are out, you watch on the side field.
As an example, Jalix Hunt and Milton Williams did not practice on Wednesday, but they were out there. Jalix was working on the side field. He's dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury. Right. Milton dealing with a foot, was watching. They were out there. Devontae was not. And they're back at practice in a limited way Thursday. So it's pretty clear. I'm talking about Milton and Jalix. It's pretty clear that they're just managed them during the week to get them to the game. Not clear that that's what's going on with Devontae this week.
Yeah, got to wonder where. And I don't know his status, obviously, but I mean, you don't want this to linger too long with we being in week 12. We're now 6 weeks away from the NFL playoffs, or 7 weeks away from the NFL playoffs. We need Smitty healthy for that run. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. From the injury front for the Rams, John, it looks good. It looks like they're all their key players are going to go in this one. So if Devontae misses, that'll really probably be the only key injury across the two teams for this game.
Yeah, and at this time of year, that the Rams the Rams have been through the ringer for most of the year
so far. Yeah,
they there's some that's the reason they're 5-5. So I do think Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are there the entire year. We're probably talking about a 7-win team, maybe even an 8-win team, and this is a really big game. So maybe this is a little bit understated what kind of foe this is with those guys being out there. But I still like the Eagles in the matchups in general. I mean, clearly they're the more talented team. But we saw a 2-win team beat an 8-win team last night. That's the NFL.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And this Rams team, look, they're 4-1 in the last 5. They were started 1-4. So obviously they're playing better football now than they did at the start of the year, and that's part of the reason they're at 5-5. But since they've had all their players, they have definitely been a better team. Still looked a little suspect last week versus the Dolphins, but I think this team is one of those teams you don't take lightly. And if you don't have Devontae out there, John, how does that shift your offensive strategy? I mean, you look at this Rams defense, you want to target the secondary. That's you think you can make a lot of hay targeting that secondary. Now with no Devontae, Dallas Goedert should have a bigger role. Jahan Dotson, I mean, every time we've talked about Jahan Dotson having a bigger role this year, including the week that there was no AJ or Devontae, he still didn't have a big game. So maybe he gets more involved this week.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people blame Jahan. I think Jahan's been fine. I really do. In very limited opportunities. Not saying he's a home run by any stretch, because they don't use their third receivers.
Yeah.
And that's been historic, way before Jahan Dotson ever got here. So When he's gotten the opportunity, unlike some of the other third receivers here, he's made some plays at least. So from that, I'd look at it as a positive. Whether they can get it going with Jahan Dotson instead of Devontae Smith, well, they can't get it going with Devontae Smith. So I'm not expecting them to get the passing game going to a high level with Jahan Dotson instead of Devontae Smith, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I mean, I've been talking about it all week. The passing game is the biggest issue with this team right now. And without Devontae Smith, similar to when they didn't have A.J. Brown earlier in the season, it makes it even less likely that it's going to be going to get going, even though, as you mentioned, if you look at the Rams logically, you might want to attack that secondary. They have the talent to do it, but I haven't seen it. So it's kind of hard to predict it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how it plays out. Will Dallas Goedert be a bigger role in this game? I think eventually we got to see that, but I don't know how much they're going to use that. Should be interesting to see what the Birds will do in this matchup. John, before we get to Scott Grayson, any other key things sticking out at you in this game other than that it's a good NFC matchup? Can't take the team lightly. What other key matchups in this game do you see as potential?
I mean, I don't like the Rams defense as a whole, so that's where I look at. It's not like they're going to show up and stop Saquon Barkley in this running game either. So, I mean, even though they're on paper, they're better against the run than the pass. I just don't like the matchup from the Rams' perspective, player-wise. And then the Eagles' defense is playing so well. A little bit of concern with a quarterback who, as we brought up a number of times last week when CJ told me after the game the plan was to make Jaden Daniels play quarterback. I think it's the exact opposite. Don't let Matthew Stafford play quarterback. So a little bit of concern with Matthew Stafford, but not a ton. He's 36 years old. He's not what he once was. Vic generally figures it out as the game progresses. But I mean, if like a starting pitcher, if somebody has, one hit, two hit stuff in baseball, well, you're in for a long night. If he's hot, you might be in for a long night. But I don't, we talk about percentages and margin of error. I don't like the styles for this game for the Los Angeles Rams. I don't know what they hang their hat on defensively.
Other than getting after the quarterback, I mean,
they're not getting after the quarterback. Everybody's talking about Jared Verse. Think about the level of edge rushers the Eagles have played. Even though they played some bad teams, think about the level of edge rushers they played through this stretch. And now Jordan's back and Lane. Funniest moment yesterday, Jalix Honda asked him if he's had his welcome to the NFL moment yet. He said, shout out to Lane Johnson. So it wasn't anybody else. It was like he said, I didn't snip the quarterback for weeks, because he had to get going against poor Lane. I mean, right. I can't worry about Jared Verse. I mean, come on.
I mean, Hurts has given up 20. He has 28 sacks taken this year. He had 36 total last year, John.
Well,
I don't think it's about the offensive line. I think it's more about the quarterback
holding on to the football.
Well, so I think that I think that's a factor here.
Well, then but I'm saying I think a lot of people from the perspective of if you just do what you're supposed to do, it's not going to be an issue.
Yeah.
If you don't do what you're supposed to do, of course it's going to be an issue. But I'm not worried about Jared Verse against Jordan or Lane Johnson.
No, I'm
not worried about it.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the particular matchup, but the quarterback's taking a lot of sacks this year. Whether that's on the offensive line. He
always takes a lot of sacks. I mean, hasn't anyone not noticed that? I mean, that's part of having a quarterback that extends plays. Those
Yeah,
quarterbacks are
that
going to
number
take
feels
more
like it's
snaps.
higher this year. He's up. I mean, his high was 22, where he had 38. He's got 28 already through 10 games this year.
Well, we've talked in the Super Bowl season, we've talked about time to throw ad nauseum. You know, he's too high. And it's got to come down a little bit. And then those sack numbers will come down a little bit. But, you know, when in theory, like when Myles Garrett is on the schedule, or as you saw last night, if you watch the game, or Micah Parsons is on the schedule, or Nick Bosa is on the schedule, then you go, oh, that's some heavy lifting. Maybe Jared Verse becomes that, but I'm not putting him in that category at this stage, especially against these tackles.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We'll see how it plays out in this game. They got a couple decent guys in the secondary. Cameron Kitchens, who's that rookie player who's been a little suspect in coverage, but he did win 2 Rookie of the Week awards the last 2 weeks, and he's been a ball hawk, forcing turnovers. So we'll see if he has any impact on that game or anybody in the secondary for the Rams. Let's get to our first commercial break, John. We'll talk to Scott Grayson from Fox 29. Looking forward to talking to Scott. We were supposed to catch up with Scott yesterday. We'll do it instead today. And then in hour number 2, we will dive deep into this game, into the key matchups, the players. And then at the end of the show, the much anticipated predictions. We will give our predictions on the way out before this Sunday night matchup. So big thanks to everybody for being here. Hit that like button. Before we get to the break, let me tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. You can see the promo code I put on your screen. It's YouTube 150. It gives you a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. We'll be back in 3 minutes, everybody, on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows that QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid. Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood day.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. Football Friday, joined now by Scott Grayson from Fox 29. Scott, how you doing in this Football Friday, man?
I'm good, guys. Sorry about yesterday. A little mix-up on my part.
No worries.
No worries. It's always my fault, Scott. I gotta remind people, and sometimes I get bogged down, as you know. It's a grind this time of the year, and certainly for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Keeping you busy, John. I don't understand.
Yeah. But with this team heading out to the West Coast, right as it gets a little bit cold, it starts feeling like football, and the Eagles go to Los Angeles. It's like we can't get a feel, but we got a snow game last night, Scott. We can't get football weather for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll probably get it in Baltimore a week after this game, but we've been talking about. I don't know what it is, but this Rams team, I don't like this matchup from the Rams' perspective. I don't know what the Rams can hang their hat on.
You mean you don't like it? You don't like how the Eagles match up with the Rams? Or
No, I don't like how the Rams match up with the Eagles. We always talk about styles make fights and yada, yada, yada. I don't like this matchup for the Los Angeles Rams a little bit. I'm looking for a reason, like, why can I pick the Rams? I can't come up with one.
The only one I can give you is I'm curious to see how Kupp and Nakua, how McVay tries to get them into space against this Eagles secondary, because they've been playing so well lately. I know he constantly has motion. He constantly is trying to do things to get them into that space. And in talking to Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell and Slay, they know that the biggest thing here is just not to give those guys cushion, because Stafford will find them if you give them cushion. So I agree with you. I mean, at first I was kind of like, oh, the West Coast trip, that can kind of wear on a team. The Eagles, will it do to them? But they had the extra mini bye. They had a few extra days off. They should be a little healthier. They should be all the reasons. As it gets closer to the game, it's one of those where I'm buying more and more into believing this is going to be a win for the Eagles than I was maybe right after the Commanders game. I agree with you. I think that, that everything points to you giving Vic Fangio a few extra days to kind of come up with a game plan with these guys. And, I just, the more I look at it, the more I think that I agree with you. I think this is an Eagles win.
I think the interesting part of it, though, is that Vic Fangio versus Sean McVay matchup. And you brought up the two receivers. They're better than anybody at finding the space and zone defenses. Do you think Vic will change it up a little this week, Scott? He played a lot of zone versus Jaden Daniels. There's pros and cons to doing that against a quarterback like Matthew Stafford. What do you think Vic Fangio will throw at him to try and get him off his game?
I was trying to think about that and try to figure that out for myself. The one thing is, if what they've done, they've been doing well. If you try to do something different with these rookies, are you starting to put yourself? Are you over? Are you trying to reinvent the wheel? Are you doing too much when what you've been doing is actually doing okay? I wonder how much they'll try to do. You're right. They've been playing a lot of zone, and the problem with the zone with those guys, they're so shifty and fast and quick twitch that if they sense they found a hole, they're going to sit. And Stafford's so good that he'll find them. If you don't get that pass rush home, which was, we all know, that's one thing the Eagles haven't done well, is gotten that pass rush there quickly. They are getting sacks, and the defensive line has admitted they're getting sacks because the secondary is doing a good job behind them in coverage. So, I'll be curious to see what they try to do. Obviously, I think Vic has done a nice job of, with these younger quarterbacks, trying to confuse them. But a guy like Matthew Stafford, who's seen a lot, I don't know that you're going to confuse him much. So I think the key is going to be really
definitely not.
Mix it up.
Yeah, Matthew's kind of seen it all. I was talking to Slay, loves Matthew Stafford. Broke in with Matthew in a bad situation, but he has tremendous respect for him. And I reminded him, Matthew Stafford's been playing for 16, 17 years. He's only 36 years old. Slay was like, oh yeah, he came in at 20. And Kellen Moore was once a teammate of Matthew Stafford, and Kellen Moore's been retired for I don't know how long, 7 years, and he's an offensive coordinator, and they're the same age, Scott Grayson. Matthew's like 4 months older than Kellen Moore, and they're the same age. He's been an amazing player. one of those underrated because he played on a bad team for so long, and everybody was like, well, he can't elevate, blah, 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 all that nonsense. He gets to a good team, he wins a Super Bowl. It's magic how that happens. But yeah, that's the one guy you have to be concerned about because he can beat anybody if he's hot. But I'm really buying into this Eagles defense, and I mean, everybody. I deal with this every week, and they say, "What is Vic going to do? What is Vic going to do?" I don't know. That's the beauty of Vic Fangio. Like everybody else has got his scheme, and he's got his scheme and his philosophy, but he changes. Against New Orleans, he rolls out that 6-man front. Everybody's like,
Right.
how are you going to stop the run game? He rolls it out. He hasn't put that out there in 6 years. He rolls it out there. Last week against Jaden Daniels, I can't tell you how much my buddy and your buddy Mike Gill asked me. Pittsburgh blitz 53% of the time. Is Vic Fangio going to copy Pittsburgh? He blitzed twice, Scott. He blitzed twice. 35 pass opportunities twice.
Right.
He does what he feels will affect the other team. And it's
And
nobody
look,
knows.
yeah, and when you look at it, you have to ask yourself, well, why? Why? It's so fun, I think, to see a defense here where you can see that the linebackers are such an integral part of their success. And the flexibility those guys have, the way that they can chase down the ball, they're always around the ball, both of them, depending on which side of the field it goes to. And I think that's been such a big key to why Vic has been able to do so much stuff is because those two guys have really, dove into their spots really well, played really well. And it's just been a long time since we've seen two linebackers here in this city that have played at this level. And I think that's a big part of it. They're flexible. They can do what he wants them to do. I think, look, Josh Sweat is really kind of coming on a little bit too in some of his role and what's been asked of him in Vic's defense. And you're right. I think Vic just, he will find a way. We will talk about something next week that he did in this game that I don't think anybody was expecting in how he decides whether it's how he covers, Puka and Kupp, how he tries to, get pressure on Stafford, or what he does, to try to get something working his way. I mean, look, the best thing that could happen for them, I think, is look, I don't think they'll have trouble stopping the run. They've done a good job of that all season. It's if the Eagles can get up and start making them really have to sling it all over the field, Matthew Stafford will give you an opportunity to pick, one or two of them off. He trusts that arm a lot. And if you can get an opportunity and get one of those takeaways, it can really, really go a long way to locking this one in. But you're right. I think Vic's been better than I expected, John and Zander. He came here and I think it was like, okay, after what we saw last year with the debacle that was defensive coordinator last year between Patricia, it just wasn't good. And you see Vic here, you go, okay, well, you're going to have a guy who knows what he's doing. The question is, will he be able to get it done with this group? And he has, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. I mean, as good as this offense is with the key prime names that you have, all these star players, I really think it's the defense that has allowed this team to be 8-2.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's why I think a fast start's going to be big in this game because if you get Stafford behind them, playing from behind, the risk of throwing that interception is there and will only increase. So we'll see how that goes. I want to ask you, Scott, about the offense here. There's a lot of optimism growing in the city right now for this football team. They're 6-0 coming out of the bye. They're now an 8-2 football team. There's one thing that everybody's still a little concerned about, and that's the passing game. And they're 22nd ranked in the passing game. It doesn't really look all that impressive at times. Sometimes it looks stagnant and ugly, and clunky is a word we like to use here on Birds 365. With no Devontae Smith potentially this week, we don't know yet, but he missed the last 2 days of practice. How much of an impact could that have on the game? And what do you expect to see from that Eagles offense this weekend?
Well, if everybody knows that the game will start and live on offensively for the Eagles, Saquon Barkley. And we know it's going to be, whether or not they continue to let him continue to go. I don't see concern from the Eagles, by the way, over his workload. I know fans, and we've talked about, look how many touches he's got. if they play 2 playoff games, he's looking at 400 touches this year. I mean, John, we've been the guy is built like a brick house. I mean, he can take a little bit of a beating, and he's got it coming off the mini bye here again. He's coming off of little extra rest. I think they're going to feature him again. And the formula to me that has worked really well is to get the ground game going, to rely on it, to continue to trust it like they did last week. It didn't light the world on fire in the first half, but wearing down the defense and that defensive front worked to your advantage in the second half. And Saquon Barkley's been so good in the second half, partly because I think that's what they're doing. They're really wearing down the combination of the offensive line and Saquon and them having to tackle him, that they're wearing down that defense, and it's allowing them to be so successful in the second half with the run. And look, as far as the passing game goes, especially in the first half, it's not pretty. It's been inconsistent. It's clunky, as you said. I think it's a good word. And Jalen just has to find a rhythm. And finally, it seems like when they are able to get that play action going and he's able to step back and at the back of his drop, deliver the ball, it can get going. And so when you ask me, like, my formula is I want Saquon to get 20 touches a game. I want Jalen to only have to throw it 24, 25 times. When he has to throw it 30 to 40 times in a game, I'll tell you right now, that probably means things aren't going your way. And so if it's only 24, 25 times, that means you're probably getting 20 receptions out there. Well, who's getting them? There's a lot of guys to catch that ball. So you ask about Devontae Smith. If he doesn't play this week, I think they're going to be all right. I mean, Dallas Goedert's still out there. You still got A.J. Brown. I am seeing a growing increase in the chemistry. It's slow, but it's coming between Jalen and Jahan Dotson. So I think that there are other opportunities out there if Devontae can't go, that I'm not worried about this offense. That offensive line's still there. Jalen's legs, he's using them better this year than he did last year. I think he's just got to find that escape route up the middle through the rush as opposed to trying to escape out the backside. That doesn't seem to work as much, and he's got to be able to do it when he sees it. There's just some things he's missing here and there still. It's got to get polished, more polished for Jalen. But look, Saquon Barkley's going to be featured. I would expect nothing less than that, and I expect them to try to wear down that Rams defense and put this team up and again, work from in front, let the defense play with the lead. All that's your formula right there. And again, I don't want to see Jalen try to throw it more than 25 times.
Well, I agree with your assessment there, Scott. The best case scenario is what you laid out, Jalen throwing the ball 25 times. But you have to play a certain way to make that happen. I was talking to Lane earlier this week, and he mentioned, teams are going to start loading the box. And I said, well, why haven't they started doing that yet, Lane? And he said, well, they have. And he pointed out that Washington actually did a really good job for 3 quarters, stopping the run. And as you mentioned, the dam kind of broke in the fourth quarter. But you can't break that dam, Scott, if you're losing by 17-6 or instead of 10-6. So, it's almost the complementary nature. The reason they were able to do that is because the defense kept them in the game and they were able to stay disciplined in the running game. The point is, when you have to throw it 40 times, to win a game, Scott. Can the Eagles win that game?
That is a great question. And I don't know that I have the faith in Jalen Hurts right now to do that. It means he has to see his reads. He has to find the right guys. He has to trust them to throw them the ball. And he has that trust with some of these guys, but he doesn't have it with all of them. And, he still is missing. I mean, look, I was listening to the game last night as I was driving around on the radio, and it was before the snow had come. Like, Russell Wilson was missing guys that were open. They were, they're talking about, it's kind of a thing league-wide. These quarterbacks are not all, 100% and seeing every guy that's open on the field, and Jalen's one of them. And he has to be better about seeing the field. He has to be better about delivering the ball on time. He is making the right throws. Sometimes it's just a touch too late. And so that's some of the stuff that's got to get polished up here to where I would finally say, yeah, I think they can win that game where he throws it 40 times. Sometimes he's on and they can win that game. Sometimes he's not, and it turns into interceptions and he holds the ball too long and that turns into strip sacks. And We've seen that. We saw that earlier this year. So, I'm not there where I can go to that point and say, yeah. But, you're right. You bring up the conversation you had with Lane. I was standing there as you had. I was fascinated by it. I enjoyed hearing Lane's thoughts. And he talked about one play in particular that scored that they kept. He said it after the game on Thursday night. He said it again when you were there talking to him, John, earlier this week, that they kept a play that they wanted to run in the second half. And it was for a touchdown. I think that's a little bit of the veteran aspect you get from a coordinator like Kellen Moore, to know there's a play he wants to hold on and run in the second half. And it's something that the opponent hasn't seen yet, right? Usually by the second half, they get a feel for what you're doing. Now it's a matter of what can we do that you can't stop. This was something he rolled out that they hadn't run yet. So, there are things they are understanding. And that's what that conversation showed me, John, is that they understand that these teams are trying different things to stop the run. And it's just not working yet. And I love the fact that the Eagles are sticking with it, not saying, okay, and this is some stuff I think Nick had done in the past when he was calling plays. Okay, well, we're going to show we're smarter than you. I know what you're trying to do, so I'm going to do something totally opposite of what you think I'm going to do. No, the Eagles know they're trying to stop the run, and they're running it anyway. I love that. In this city, that's the mentality here, right? We're going to do it, even if you think you can stop it, because we're that good, and we don't think you can. And I love that they're keeping that mentality, and the offensive line is leading the way, and Saquon's, taking it and embracing it. And Kenny Gainwell, to his credit, when he comes in, he's finding some of those holes, as well. So I was intrigued by that conversation you had with Lane, and I loved his answers to those questions.
Scott, speaking of Kellen Moore, and I don't want to pollute the question, but I don't think Kellen Moore was brought here to improve the Eagles' running game, which has already been very dominant in recent years. How do you evaluate what he's been for this team, especially considering the passing game is not quite where I think they want it to be yet?
Yeah, it's not. And I think, the great thing is that they all understand that, look, we're only just past the midway point of the season. So there's time to fix this in terms of that passing game. And it's a matter of really just timing and Jalen Hurts, in my opinion. So that's just more reps, more film, more hopefully, work that takes place behind the scenes. You're right. He wasn't brought here to make the run game, what it is. I'm frankly surprised we haven't seen Saquon be more of a factor in the receiving game at this point. And maybe he will at some point. But it was the motion. It was the way they were going to try to scheme these guys open to throw.
Nobody talks about motion anymore, Scott.
I know we don't. We don't. But they are using it, and they are trying to do different things to kick blocks in with a motion guy, or to maybe spring a guy like a Devontae Smith by putting him in motion and getting him open. But it hasn't. They all say it after these games too. It's not a finished product. We still have a lot of work to do on this offense. We have. And that's the humble side of things that I appreciate from these guys, is that they're looking at what they're doing offensively and going, look, it's good, but it's not as good as it should be or as it could be, and that they understand there's things to fix. And, I think that's where Kellen Moore has to, continue to grow this offense. It's great that they have the run game going, but that game will come. That game will come where it's not there. And John's right. They'll be behind by 6-7 points. They're going to have to throw the ball to win the game. And they're working on this stuff every week, and maybe we're not seeing it because they don't need to go to it yet, right? The running game's working. We can stick with it. We don't need to throw it that much. We don't need to run those plays that are in the playbook and sitting there, waiting to be used for that game that does happen. And I think it's coming. I think it could be Baltimore. It could be Pittsburgh that does a good job of limiting some of that run. That forces them to have to throw it more. And I'm looking forward to seeing what I really hope this team gets tested in that way, because as they get closer and closer to making that run into the playoffs, they're going to have to know what they can and can't do, or need to work on through some of that stuff that they have to handle.
We are used to being here, Scott. In fact, through 10 games, the Eagles are actually a little bit worse than they were in 2022 and 2023 when they started 9-1. They are 8-2. They are becoming this standard sort of in the NFL, certainly in the NFC, for success, with the anomaly of the collapse last year. So what makes you look at this team and say they're closer to 2022 where they can sustain it versus 2023 when it looked like San Francisco stole their soul? Could Baltimore steal their soul on December 1st?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? And I've kind of left the locker room the last few weeks kind of thinking that to myself, like, why? Because this was about the time, you're right, when the bottom fell out and last year became the epic collapse that it was. And so, okay, for me, it's the chemistry. It's the unity that you feel or see in that locker room. It's the guys like Slay who request to have Quinyon Mitchell's locker next to him. This is the guy who could be coming here to take your job, but he put him at his locker next to him so they could help grow him, and help improve him and keep him growing, because he knows our success this year is going to be partly dictated by how well that guy plays. So you look at the veteran leadership, the mix of the youth, and I look at the chemistry. Again, this defense, the problem for me in the first 4 games was a guy like C.J. Gardner-Johnson. The one play that sticks out in my mind was when Quinyon Mitchell was right there for an interception. And he fought him in the air for the ball and it fell incomplete. CJ did. And it was like, what are you doing? Like, that's a total selfish play. Since then, this defense is playing for each other. They are playing together. There is no selfish play going out there, not padding stats in some way. I see guys, really making the plays that need to be made because it's my turn to make the play. They're in my area, not somebody playing out of their mind, trying to go somewhere that's not part of the scheme. So I feel that chemistry. So when you say what's the difference, and I don't know if you feel it, John, when you're in the locker room and hear these guys and you see them. I mean, how many guys, right? These practices lately when we're in there on Wednesdays have been ending late in the day. These guys could just come in, grab their stuff, and go. There's really nothing else holding them there. And there were a ton of them playing ping pong in that side room, the rec room, if you will, and hanging out in there together. I don't remember seeing that last year. I mean, I heard that ping pong ball going nonstop on Wednesday when we were there. So I feel like the chemistry, the unity, again, the playing for each other, the leadership that has emerged, the obviously the level of play from the young guys who've stepped up is not nothing. It doesn't feel anything to me like it did last year when they really, frankly, couldn't answer why they were winning, and then they couldn't figure out why they were losing. They know why they're winning this year. They figured out, right? We used it earlier on. What's their identity? This team has figured out their identity on both sides of the ball, and there wasn't that last year. So I think that's all the reasons why, to me, this is going to be a sustained run into the playoffs, and I think they're going to be right there competing for the 1 seed, by the time it's all said and done.
Yeah, Scott, you went right where I was going to go in terms of last year. This is kind of the point in the year where things fell off the rails last year. I think it was a year ago yesterday or 2 days ago that the Eagles beat the Chiefs, moved to 10-1 or whatever it was at that time, and then the things fell off the rails. What have you seen that's different this year that would lead you to believe that they're not in danger of that happening again this year? Is it as simple as the coordinators? Is it as simple as the teams playing ping pong together and they're all best friends? What have you seen from this team this year to show that they're more of a unit, or at least seemingly more of a unit this year?
Well, it's I think it's having each other's backs. Look, Jake Elliott had his worst game as an Eagle, right? But the team found a way to rally around him, behind him, despite him, and still come out with a win on that Thursday night. That team doesn't win that game last year. They don't have that confidence to go out there despite all those missed points that were left off the board, and go out there and win the game anyway. They didn't have the Saquon Barkley, right? This team knows, we have a potential MVP candidate in our backfield. That's not nothing. Running behind an offensive line that knows it's one of the best in the league. That's not nothing. And this defense has emerged as one of the best in the league. They believe they're one of the best in the league now. They all have bought in to that scheme that they've bought into what Vic Fangio's selling. So I think you have confidence in the guy next to you to make the play. You have the chemistry that's there that I talked about off the field. I hear these guys talking all the time about how the meeting rooms are fun. Some of that can get to be a real drag when you sit in those dark rooms and you're watching film and you're trying to talk about stuff and analyzing things. And I hear these guys talking about how they're having fun in the meeting rooms. And that's not something that happened last year. So these are all reasons why off the field, and this is where I think you can go into and say, well, I'm turning my my thought on Nick Sirianni around a little bit to say, look, you have to appreciate what you have while it's here, because I think there were times we didn't appreciate what Andy Reid was when he was here, and then he's gone. And I think Nick is doing a great job behind the scenes and off the field of getting these guys ready to play every week. And we don't give him credit for that. We look at the decisions he makes that make us go, what were you thinking when you didn't kick that field goal? Or why did you go for it on fourth down there? I think, look, Nick's records is what it is. And I know they've played some bad teams along the way, but you don't get to this win percentage by accident. And these guys, when you think back to it, Nick was on the hot seat, this team came out and played like its hair was on fire for their head coach. All that stuff to me is another reason to say, okay, I'm willing to buy into them, continuing this run.
All right, I'm going to give you 4 things, Scott. I'm going to give you 2 offensive, 2 defenses. I want you to put them in order, go 4-1, 1-4, whatever you're most comfortable with as the most important part of this team. On offense, I'm going to go Saquon Barkley and the offensive line. And on defense, I'm going to go Zach Bond and Vic Fangio. The entire team, the success, the 8-2 of the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 1 through 4. Those are the top 4 things.
I guess I have to go with the defensive thing first, because I said that I think the big reason why they're 8-2 is because of the defense. Look, this offense has sputtered in the first half, and the defense has kept them right there to where they can blow up in the second half and then put a game away, right? So, I'm going Vic Fangio 1.
Woo, Vic. I love Vic.
Because I just think what he's done to these opponents is not nothing, obviously. And Saquon would be 2. Again, I think this offense believes with him on the field. They have a legit home run threat that could run the ball all the way, to the end zone every time. And then I'll probably go offensive line 3. Saquon needs them to do their job in order to be able to do his. And then 4, I'd go Zach Bond. But, man, to me, that might be the biggest thing how he did this offseason was Zach Bond.
Oh, it is. Yeah. He got lucky, but it is.
Yeah, he did. They found something. And that, again, you're going back to my number 1. Vic Fangio was integral in saying, hey, I think I can do something with this guy. And he was right. And so, they have to get him signed, obviously. I think Zach needs to be here, next year for sure. But those are great. Those are 4 great things that I think you could put in any order, and anybody would be right. That's just the way I
Good
see
stuff
it.
there, Scott. All right, brother. How you seeing this game play out this Sunday? It's a Sunday night matchup. SoFi Stadium, 8-2 Eagles, 5-5 Rams. How do you see
home
it
game
playing
for
out?
the Eagles, by the way. Home game
Most
for the
likely,
Eagles.
They always travel well out there. I think it's going to be like they've been. I think it'll be a close game in the first half. It'll stay relatively close. And then in the second half, this team has averaged in this winning streak, 6-game win streak, they've averaged 17 points per game in the second half. The Eagles have. I think that continues. I think they'll end up winning this game by about double digits, because they'll start breaking it open in the second half. But I think we'll be looking at a relatively close game in the first half, and they'll break it open in the second half like they've been. That seems to be their formula for success, and I don't see any reason why it would be different this week.
At S Grayson Fox 29. Make sure you follow Scott on the X platform. Does a tremendous job there. Thanks for stopping by. You're in your car. I appreciate that. Appreciate a little bit of extra time. I'm glad we caught up. We're always here. I'll end it with Nick Sirianni. You brought him up a little bit. Boy, I mean, we have to call the fan base here entitled, right? I mean, Philadelphia talks, and it'll happen, by the way, if the LA Rams upset the Philadelphia Eagles this week, there will be a bunch of people calling for Nick Sirianni's job. And as I mentioned, 9-1, Scott, 9-1, 8-2. That's where the Eagles have been through 10 games, 3 consecutive years. If you go back to his first season of 2021, they got up to that 2-5 start. Since that time, they're 40-14. 40-14. And this guy was on the hot seat, and you're right, he was on the hot seat for a very small period of time. What are we doing here? What if that's not good enough? What are we doing?
So I've asked myself that question, like, what has been the issue with Nick? And I think there's two Nicks, right? There's Nick, the football coach, and then there's Nick, the person. Nick, the person, was the guy who everybody still remembers, walked in and started talking about fertilizing the ground and plants growing and all that stuff. And
It
everybody's
worked.
first impression though was, oh my goodness, what is this? And then, first impressions, we all say it, right? They stick with you. And it's something in the back of our minds we'll always go to when we get mad at Nick. So the Nick, the person, is also the guy who's yelling at people, fans for either team, as he's walking off the field so there's that. There's Nick, the person, who's bringing his kids to the podium after a midseason game loss or after a midseason game. And so there's all that extra stuff, right? But Nick, the football coach, man, he has his guys ready to play, it seems. He has them ready to go, even when it's like everybody's going, hey, watch out, this could be a trap game. No, they come out, they play well for the most part. He's got them focused. His players like him. And so Nick, the football coach, I think is the guy we've got to try to keep our eye on and not be distracted by. Nick, the human being. Who sometimes lets his emotions get the best of him and veers off track a little bit, but he always comes back. He gets reeled in. And I think Nick, the football coach, deserves a lot of credit. And I think that's what everybody needs to start focusing on is Nick, the football coach, and ignore Nick, the human being, who sometimes gets sidetracked. And will he still make some calls on fourth down that we question? Will he, still make some bad decisions that everybody wants to rip their hair out? You know what? Every football coach does. But overall, this guy, more often than not, a 2/3 clip is winning games. And when you have that going on consistently, don't look the gift horse in the mouth. Again, we did it with Andy Reid. All of us did. And we got consumed by the fact, he's not doing a great job late in the game. He's not managing late game situations. Well, he's going to be a Hall of Fame coach. And when he was here, everybody started to get tired of his act. So Nick Sirianni, I'm not saying Nick's a Hall of Fame coach. I mean, he could be. He's certainly putting up numbers right now.
He's en route. I'll say that.
I think we all need to stop and appreciate a little better. I'm not trying to sit here saying I want to be his publicist or anything, but appreciate a little better what Nick, the football coach, is doing with this group of guys, because it's not nothing, and it could end up leading them to right back to a Super Bowl.
Well, and I'll say this, Scott, I'll be his publicist for a second. It's ironic. Nick, the person, would win over these morons in 2 minutes. I mean, that's his whole thing.
In a tailgate at a bar.
Yeah,
certainly he'd be right there jumping on tables in Buffalo. Probably.
That's his whole thing, man. He gets everybody. He likes everybody. Everybody likes him. He gets the players to play for him, as you mentioned. That's his actual strength. Is getting people on the same page. But yeah, now I'm done the publicist stuff. Nick, you better win if you're listening.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, but you're right. I mean, he is a polarizing guy to the point where any loss, more often than not, it goes to him before it goes to Jalen or somebody else. They look at Nick and like, what was Nick?
And by the way, Scott, that's his strength to Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. Zander and I talk about it all the time. He's the lightning rod. So people don't look at Howie and Jeffrey to a certain extent.
Yeah, and they'd be 9-1 if not for that one call that a lot of us hated, where they put the ball in the air to Saquon Barkley.
Yeah. Well,
potentially be 9-1.
Yeah. And look, the players still play for Nick. I think that's pretty evident, and that's an important part of the coaching equation for me. And I thought you said that nicely, Scott. Thanks for joining today, brother. It was great catching up with you. Thanks for doing it from the car. We'll talk to you again soon. All right, Scott?
Yeah, you got it. You guys take care. Have a good, what is today? Friday. Have a great
Friday. Football Friday.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Scott. I'll see you down there.
Yeah, make sure you guys follow Scott at S Grayson Fox 29 on Twitter. Scott's a great follow. And he does a good job.
By the way, that's my pet peeve. I love Scott, for people that don't know. But I mean, you can't. But people want Saquon Barkley to be the MVP, and you can't say it's a bad call to put a freaking layup in the hands of the MVP.
Yeah, I knew you didn't like that on the way
Well,
out.
I mean, come on. How could you call the guy the MVP, and then you're like, that's a bad decision to put the ball?
Well, and the play worked too. It's not even like
The play was perfect.
Yeah,
It was a perfect play call.
The
Guy
play
dropped the
worked.
football.
Yeah, good stuff, John. We got about an hour left to play here. We'll get to some super chats. Let's see, we have one now from Keith. Thank you, Keith. Appreciate it, man. And we'll do some super chats in hour number 2. We got a full hour here to break down this game. Looking forward to doing that. Keith says, great take on Nick at Scott Grayson. Keith, are you feeling grateful today that Nick Sirianni is the head coach of the Philadelphia
I don't know
Eagles?
if I get grateful. Wow.
I don't know.
If you get grateful.
I think Keith likes Nick. Big Keith.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no reason not to if you're an Eagles fan. Top 10.
You say Nick would win everybody over, John. The only thing
God, yeah.
but the only experience I have with Nick, he didn't win me over.
Really?
Nick, no, he was a great guy. He was a very nice guy, but he gave me a weak, flimsy handshake, and I'm one of those people that doesn't like the weak,
football
flimsy
players. Sometimes their hands are banged up, so it's dependent on
Yeah, I'm not buying that one on Nick though. Sorry.
I don't know. I've never shaken his hand. I tend to, in the post COVID world, I'm a fist bump guy. I don't shake anybody's hand anymore.
Yeah, this actually might have been in the heat of what was that when he won that award at the Maxwells and Jacob was producing the Maxwell Awards? I think it was 2 years ago. Jalen was there, Brandon Graham was there, Big Dom was there.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a respect thing, Dank Bird Gang. It was, I mean, he shook everybody's hand in the back. He just had a little bit of a dead fish. That's all. A little soft. It was a little too soft for my life.
You don't want, trust me, I've gotten the opposite of that with most notably Adrian Peterson. You don't want that. You don't want the opposite.
What, the firm handshake? I like a firm handshake. What's your
no, you don't. I'm talking about a vice. I'm not talking about a firm handshake. I'm talking about a vice. And actually, that's number 2. I tell the story all the time. At 65 years old, I met Jim Marshall for the first time. Unbelievable hand strength. I can't even describe it. I was begging to get out of there.
John, I will back down from nobody when it comes to a nice
Nolan Smith, by the way, was shaking people's hands the other day. He's got a firm handshake.
Good. Every man should have a firm handshake for crying
No,
out
you
loud.
shouldn't shake hands now. You should fist
Oh,
bump.
John, don't give me that bullshit.
Should fist bump.
John's team fist bump post-COVID.
Team fist bump. No, it's not post-COVID because COVID is I don't want to get into that, but it's common sense. It should have been done for years, but germs are a big thing. I'm not, I'm talking about.
No, I know there are people
common
that care about germs. John, I've always been the person that doesn't care about germs. And to I mean, I don't get sick much. I didn't get sick at all growing up. I never missed a day of school growing up for being sick.
Well,
ever.
you're young. At some point, you'll get sick.
At some point, it'll change.
The point is, it's a germ factory.
No, but I mean, some people, they deal with somebody and they run to the bathroom to wash their hand, or they have the hand sanitizer. I think you're that guy.
I'm not at the Howie Mandel level. He does that, but I got the hand sanitizer in the car at all times. Yeah, I mean, they got Purell stations all over the building for a reason.
Yeah,
you're in an NFL locker room. Yeah.
Hate the smell of that stuff, man. I prefer to not. I prefer to not use it. But anyway, I digress. When I did meet Nick, though, he did have the dead fish, which made me judge him a little bit.
Well,
Jalen Hurts, no dead fish. Brandon Graham, no dead fish. Big Dom, John, no dead fish there.
Probably shook Brandon's hand over the years before I shipped it to the fist bump because he's been around so long. But everybody else, no, I'm all I'm 100% fist bump now.
Yeah, I get it. All right, good stuff. Let's get to our commercial break. We'll have opened up hour number 2 here. Time to dive into this game deep. We've covered a lot of it, but there is some interesting things in this game. I think the most interesting is what do you do to take away Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua? Maybe you don't take them away. How do you limit them? How do you put yourself in a position to overcome what they're going to provide? They've been a much better offense with those two players on the field who both battled with injuries early in the year. So it'll be interesting to see how this game plays out from that perspective, and we'll break all that down. Coming up next here on Birds 365, before I take our break, I want to tell you guys about the great people at BetUS, the best betting company. You can see the promo code I just put on your screen. It's YouTube 150. And it gives you a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit. And you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. We'll be back in 3 minutes, everybody, on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid.
Score and save at Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. Already week 12, man. Week 12. Everybody should enjoy each game that comes because it clearly goes quick, and we have less weeks left than what we've already been through. So we are well past the halfway mark of this season going into week 12 here. Birds are 8-2. Rams are 5-5. Eagles opened as a 3-point favorite in this game. I think it's down to 2.5. You guys would have to check. I'll have to check on BetUS to see what the odds are down to. And 8:20, Sunday night football game. Johnny Mack, it's at SoFi Stadium out in L.A., so it'll be interesting to see how this thing plays out. John, I mentioned Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp before the break. Those are the two guys, man, that I see as, you know, if you're going to beat this Rams team or you're going to slow down this Rams offense, make life hard for them. And it's hard to make life hard for them. They're good receivers, and they can pick out weak spots in defenses better than many other receivers in the league can. They're not just athletic guys or good route runners or, have great hands. They have those things too, but they can read a defense and find the spots in the zone coverages, and that's one of Cooper Kupp's best attributes. What do you see the Eagles doing to try and slow those two guys down in this game?
Well, I think it's a lot. I think this is discipline week for the Eagles defense. I really believe that it's the motion is real with Sean McVay. The whole idea of testing that discipline, getting leverage. It's mainly about getting leverage, and just getting, whether it's outside shoulder, inside shoulder. The minute you give up that leverage to Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua, you're probably going to be in trouble. Plus, you have a quarterback who can get them the football on time, on schedule, and all that kind of stuff. So, number one, I would say it's discipline, and people have been talking about that all week. Cooper, understand it's big. Reed Blankenship, talking to him, understands how big it is. Vic downplayed it because Vic doesn't want to alert, people outside the building, but inside the building, talking to his guys. That's what the whole thing is. If you're disciplined and you don't fall for what I say all the time, Sean McVay himself calls the illusion of complexity. He loves to use that word, illusion. It looks complex. It's not complex for them. And it's really designed to test that discipline. And if the Eagles are disciplined, it's not going to matter. If they're not, it's going to matter a lot. I pointed out that play of releasing Puka Nacua inside between essentially the B gap. So you have a receiver releasing inside the offensive line. And I forget what team it was. They got completely lost, and it turns into a 30-yard gain down the field. Because you don't see it often. And it's difficult. It's easy to say be disciplined, but it's difficult to be disciplined. So when everybody starts talking about motion and Sean McVay's, let's be honest, Sean McVay is the Vic Fangio of offensive football. He's the guy people copy the most. Could be Kyle Shanahan, but one or the other. And they're both the same, essentially. I mean, they're both from the same tree, a little bit different. But those are the two guys when it comes to offensive football that people copy the most. And Vic's the guy on the defensive side right now. And what it is about that sort of and Matt LaFleur, who was Mike LaFleur, excuse me, who's their offensive coordinator, is Matt LaFleur's brother. It's all incestuous between the Shanahan and McVay trees. Had mentioned, a lot of people think it's cool, the motion. We talked about it all off season. We talked about it. They think it's cool. He said, we don't do it to be cool. We don't do it because it looks good, because it's aesthetic to people outside the building. We do it for a purpose. And their purpose is typically to gain that leverage on a defender a little bit easier. And the way to do that is to, affect their eyes. And the minute you have that this has been going on in the NFL. I talked about it on the 4th and 1 play to Jamar Chase in the Bengals game that Cooper DeJean snipped out. Tremendous example. All that back and forth didn't matter because Cooper was disciplined and he stopped the play. That's the perfect example of what you have to do. You're not going to do it 100% of the time, but if you do it pretty consistently, you're going to be fine. If you don't, you're going to have issues.
Be interesting to see if they run Puka Nacua up the B gap in this game like they did previously. I don't think so. Maybe they will, John. We never know what John McVay. John,
If I'm Jalen Carter and I see Puka Nacua,
oh my gosh.
he's on his ass. I'll
Yeah,
tell
I'm
you
taking
that.
him out of the gate. Friggin' deck that guy, man. Make him regret.
By
ever
the way,
coming up
by
that-
by the way, he is a very. I think people don't understand Puka Nacua. He is a very physical wide receiver.
It's amazing he made it to the 5th round. I mean, obviously hindsight's
Well,
always
he made it to the
2020.
fifth round because he's not explosive. Like I think people think he's not.
But he does everything well.
Yeah,
He's even a deep threat. He's been a deep threat for them. He's over the middle. He's
he's not a deep threat.
no, he's
That's
not solely a deep threat, but he can't. He's not like he can go deep. I mean, they've thrown.
Well,
they've thrown him deep.
everybody can go deep, but he's more. He's more of a possession type. He's a big physical receiver. He might be the best blocking receiver in football. He is a big physical receiver. That's why he fell, because the guys who go at the top of the draft are the explosive guys. He's not the most explosive guy in the world, but he's a big physical, smart receiver who you can give touch after touch, catch after catch. And he's going to move the chains. He's a very smart player, high football IQ. We were talking to Britton yesterday, a couple of us, and he's very close to the Nacua family as a whole, because his brothers played football as well. Sampson's one of them. And the best one was, I forget his name now, but he was a defensive end, and he was the best of the Nacua brothers, and he got in some trouble at BYU. But yeah,
BYU, do people get in trouble down at BYU?
Well, they get in trouble there's a lot of people get in trouble at BYU because there's a lot of rules.
Yeah, that's true.
They're not necessarily, I'm not talking about, robbing banks. I'm talking about dating women.
Yeah, really.
A lot of people get in trouble at BYU, but I digress. Yeah, I mean, his brother used to stay at his house, Britton's house. They're very close, but yeah, he's a very good player. But I think there's a misconception of what type of player he is. He's more the big physical guy than the explosive guy down the field.
Yeah, good stuff. We got a couple of super chats we'll get to here to keep the viewers engaged. Good to see everybody in the chat, by the way, today. Have a good crowd as always here on this Football Friday. Brian Fleming, don't look up soaking if you don't want to have an interesting morning.
Yes.
Thinking about those BYU guys.
A lot of rules.
Don't look up soaking, as Brian Fleming puts it in the chat.
Unfortunately, I know what he's talking about. Yes, don't look up for.
I unfortunately know too. One of the weird phenomenons. Now we'll have all 850 people watching Birds 365 right now. Google searching what soaking is. In the Mormon culture,
it's just weird. By the way,
It is. It's weird. Yeah. All love though. For any, all love.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Great Mormons. They're great people. Saquad says, Vic gets the flowers, but this defensive staff now has Clint Hurt, Bobby King, Christian Parker, Roy Anderson, and Joe Casper. That is an all-star cast, and Nick should get some credit for those hires. Interesting take there, John. What do you have to say back to that?
Well, I mean, Vic's a big part of the hires as well. You didn't? Did he mention Bobby King? He might be.
He did. Yeah, he put Bobby King there.
Yeah, Bobby's the Nick guy. Everybody else is sort of more a big. Joe Casper's. He was with the Eagles and came back. But yeah, I mean, I'm giving big credit for the defense.
It's still good though. I mean, look, I'm giving Vic credit, but to Saquad's point, it is good to have position coaches that you're confident in that are teaching these guys fundamentals and how to play the position. Because then when you ask them to do something within your defense, you're confident that they can play it right. And I think that goes a long way. And in having a successful defense, you can have talented players. If they don't know how to play the position or they're not being taught what to do properly within the scheme, it's not going to work as good.
Well,
I think
I'll
they
just
deserve
say
to
that
go.
if for some reason somebody wants to hire Vic to be a head coach again, which I don't think I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he's looking to leave. But if for some reason he leaves, I'm not comfortable with anybody taking over for Vic Fangio. Now, that's not an insult of any of those guys. It's just, it's not the same. As
Who would
we've
it be
already
if
seen.
if that did happen? Who would it be? Clint Hurt? He's already been a
Well,
defensive
Clint's already
coordinator.
been the coordinator, so he would be in it. Bobby King's actually turned into his right-hand man, which is interesting because he was the one guy he didn't have a real relationship with.
He does have
Even-
that old school mentality. You remember what did Bobby King say in the summer that had a bunch of headlines? Not headlines, but we talked.
Pajama Day.
Oh yeah, Pajama Day, talking about the OTAs or whatever it was.
Yeah, so he's become the right-hand man. Joe was with he was here, then he went with Vic down in Miami, and Vic took him back. So but the young coach, the up-and-coming young coach is Christian Parker. So those, Clint's done it. Christian's the young guy that's going to be the hot. I think Pelissero mentioned Christian in his future head coaching thing he always does. And Bobby's the actual right-hand man right now. He's big responsible. Internally, everybody gives Bobby a lot of credit for the improved tackling. He's behind the ships and the tackling circuits in practice, and the Eagles have suddenly turned into one of the best tackling teams.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
saw that stat that came out yesterday. They're second in the league, right? In missed fewest missed tackles.
Yeah. And now for all the good I talk about Vic, one of the anomalies that I think is bizarre, to be honest, is his talk in the training camp of all the people that have studied under him. He doesn't give them all the secrets, which is not necessarily a good thing. But that's what he said. And all the people that copy him don't seem to do it as well. So yeah.
Maybe
I don't want the copy. Let's put it that way.
You think they hired Sean Desai over in LA specifically to combat this defense? Because it's all over the league. It's not just in Philly being played.
Well, I mean, Sean's been doing it. Sean hired Brandon Staley to run Vic Fangio's scheme because of back when he couldn't deal with it, back when he went to his first Super Bowl. That was the whole point. He's been doing it for years. Nick did it. There's so many. Kyle did it. Matt LaFleur did it. Kevin O'Connell did it. They all hired coaches specifically to run Vic Fangio's scheme, and they all didn't run it as well. The closest would be Jonathan here in 2022. Ed Donatel, I bring up, shitty job. Brandon Staley was okay. Brandon Staley was good. He got a head coaching job, but he wasn't. Obviously, we know what he became. Green Bay did it poorly. San Francisco did it okay. But yeah, nobody's done it to the level of Vic.
Good stuff there. Saquads, thanks for the super chat, man. Appreciate that. Dank Bird Gang checks in. November 19th was the 46th anniversary of Miracle at the Meadowlands. #1 Giants head coach was Sean McVay's grandfather, John McVay. Look at that little intel here going into this Rams game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of there's coaching families in the NFL, and there's a lot of it, and a lot of times it's a bad thing. It's not bad with Sean McVay. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, there's a lot of that incestuous nature to the industry of football, to say the least.
No doubt. Good stuff there, Dank Bergang. Appreciate that. Brother John, offensively coming into this football game, what do you expect? Big day in the passing game? Is it Saquon Barkley day? You said you're you're not worried too much about that defensive line over there. I can't say I am either, other than that Jalen might hold on to the
Well,
ball.
it has more to do with the Eagles' offensive line.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, look,
when
if
I
I'm gonna
asked
put him,
that
rely on him.
question, I'll ask it of you as well. I gave it to Scott. So there's 4 things: 2 offense, 2 defense. Put them in order. Saquon Barkley, offensive line on offense, defense, Zach Bond, Vic Fangio. Offensive line is my number 1.
And you're asking to rank those 4 in order of importance for the team?
Yes.
Ooh, man, I like that. I know you asked Scott that. I was managing some. That's tough. I think offensive line's got to be number 1.
That's
Does
my
Vic
number
Fangio
1.
go number 2?
That's yes, I have Vic second. People think I hate. Then I have
You're
Zach
gonna go
on
Zach
third,
3 and
Saquon
Saquon
4th.
4. I'm gonna go Saquon probably 3. I just think I mean, look, this defense. When you have a defense playing top of the league, you could almost argue that Vic is number 1 because of the defense.
Well, I have
being
no
more
problem with,
successful.
but yeah, I generally tend to go players before coaches.
Yeah, me too. But I mean, just based on the way the question was asked, because the defense is playing so good, you could make an argument that Vic is more important this year. Like this perfect example was last week. If we don't have a good defense last week, that game is not unfolding the way it unfolded. So the defense gives this team the ability to play like they want to play on offense. It gives this team the ability to run behind the offensive line. If you don't have a good defense and you're going down in
Well,
games,
yeah, I said they don't have a good defense. That game is completely different against Washington. They probably, even if they score 1 more touchdown, you can't play the way you played. And it was Sean McVay had a great quote about the Eagles. I'll try to pull it up about that exact thing. And I think that's what he was sort of talking about, their ability to play a certain way. And he said, I think that's one of the things that I admire and respect the most about this team is they play as a team instead of separate entities, offense, defense, and special teams. In other words, the Washington game's the perfect example. As we said, it was 10-6. Washington was stopping the run. Like everybody forgets when the game's over, because you have the huge 4th quarter and you have the 39-yard touchdown, the 23-yard touchdown. He was under 4 yards a carry through 3 quarters. And that's what Lane was talking about. It was like they were stopping it. But, the dam opened in the 4th quarter. But why did it open? Well, it opened because it was still 10-6 and you could open it. You could still be disciplined. If it's 17-6, you can't do that. You can't do it. You got to go try to win the game a different way. And that's what Lane was trying to impart.
that's why I think the defense is so important right now, John. I mean, if this team, you can't assume, obviously, the season's not linear, but the passing game isn't where it needs to be. So if we just assume, let's just say, all right, right now, this is what it looks like. This is what's going to be the passing game. They're going to hover around 15 to 22. You better have a good defense late in the year, because if you want to win the way they win right now, your defense has to hold
play
teams.
a
If they
certain
don't,
way.
you're done.
Yeah. And they've been doing it to this point. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't argue with anybody putting Vic number 1. I would argue anybody putting Zach or Saquon above the offensive line and Vic. That's where I would
I would agree.
argue. The offensive line, like I use those 2 plays as an example, and I encourage everybody. I'm sure you've seen them 100 times. Look at those 2 runs. I mean, yes, the back is explosive. 39 yards might turn into 25 yards with a normal back. 23 yards might be 16 yards with a normal back. But those were holes that you just don't see in the NFL. And this
driving down a
offensive line,
highway, driving down an open highway in the middle of the night with the holes on this.
this offensive line is just, I can't say enough about them. I mean, it starts with Lane and Jordan, who are, you know, they don't even, they don't help them. I think people don't realize that. Everybody's got to help in the NFL. When the Eagles have Lane, this is the biggest luxury they have offensively. They don't have to help their tackles ever. They do occasionally, you know, if you want to set somebody up. I'm not saying it's 100% of the time, but somebody, and I don't know who it was, put up help rate versus success, and both Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson were by themselves at the top of the chart. By themselves, the two Eagles tackles.
Right.
I
need help.
And I just don't think people understand how dominant that offensive line is. And, you know, Landon Dickerson is probably having a bad year for him. And because of some of the, you know, he's been dealing with some things. And he's dominant. Mekhi Becton has been, that's another, we talk about Howie's moves. How about that move?
That was a good move. You know what else I think is a good move that's right now under the radar, but people will realize it was a good move and it was a draft pick? It's Tyler Steen.
Tyler shit. Well, he's a backup. I mean,
I know, but he's been good, and now I wonder what they're going to do with Becton. You know, they got a lot of these contracts looming.
Yeah, well, he's probably going to get a lot of money, and then Tyler will have his opportunity. But you know, I'm not. My point is, I'm not confident that Tyler Steen can play like Mekhi Becton is playing.
He's been good though in the limited role.
He's fine, but I think, you know, I think I'm looking at the guard rankings. Landon's 12th in the NFL. Mekhi's 15th. I mean, my God, there's 64 starting guards. You got 12 and 15. You know, you got a top 10 center who's making that block on the 39-yard touchdown by Cam Jurgens. My God.
Yeah. That was Kelce-esque.
Even Kelce would be impressed by that. And we talk about Jordan Mailata is currently number one. Lane Johnson's number 4 in tackles. That's your offensive line. It is unbelievable.
John, you feeling like a Saquon Barkley jersey giveaway this week for the JAKIB Nation?
It depends how the game goes.
Well, I know that's going to put you on the spot.
Yes, if it's a close game. If it's not, they'll probably rest them. And no,
I think it's going to be a close game. I have a feeling it's going to be a close game this week.
Yeah, their interior people are more pass rushers than run stuffers. So I know people are just going to look at the gross statistics, but I mean, they don't have big run stuffers in the middle. They have more quick, explosive guys. So yeah, when I talk about the matchups for this, I don't like them. I don't like, Mekhi Becton and Landon Dickerson leaning on those guys. I don't like that matchup for the Rams at all. So I'm going to go over. Yeah. So get ready.
Right.
You might as well order it.
Going over 6 jersey coming. Is it coming? We'll see if it comes. We'll see if we'll be doing a giveaway. Late Sunday game. We'll be doing a show Sunday night. Hope to have all of you guys in there for the post-game show. It's been the post-game show has been excellent so far this year, and the night ones get a little fun toward the end when we're live. Me and the great people of JAKIB Nation are live till 2:30, 3 in the morning.
Just you're punch drunk by that point.
Oh, I am. I admit it too. We talk about it on the air. I mean, at that point, I'm seeing stars. I'm up there I'm bringing them up on the show. It's a lot of fun doing it, though. I will say that. And then we get right back at it, 8 a.m., Birds 365. So, Madness, you got a spot, brother. I will bring you up if you're in there and you're ready to rumble, Madness. It'll be a late night, my friend. Although I think you're a DJ, so you're used to late nights. You're used to late nights, Madness. So, good stuff.
Hey, did you see that moron berating Jason Kelce in
my
Los
God,
Angeles?
what was that? I couldn't believe Kelce went over and gave
I
that guy
couldn't
the time
believe
of
it
day.
either. I mean,
Kelsey's too nice.
That's the price of fame. Well, he got into it with the Penn State kid. I mean, just leave the guy alone. My God.
Yeah, I guess he's trying to make himself look a little better after that. I don't know. Is that what he's trying to do?
I don't know.
I would have done it too. I woke up and saw that. I didn't see it. Like, I didn't watch it in real time last night when it came out, but I did see it before the show, and I'm like, what is this asshole screaming at Jason Kelce? Sounds like a jerk off.
He was a jerk off.
Yeah, it was a big jerk off.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you put in this position. I guess, he was on the Kimmel show, Jason, and he was announcing his late night ESPN show.
I mean, they just keep giving him stuff. Jason Kelce, eventually he's going to have to turn down some of these jobs.
He's going to have to move out there, unfortunately for him.
Oh, is he moving out there?
I'm saying if he keeps doing this type of, this is only, I don't know, like 5 weeks, one day. I think it's not like a daily.
I think it's Friday and Saturday night I saw, but
it's not like a daily show. So, but eventually, if he keeps doing the stuff he's doing, he's probably going to have to go out to Hollywood.
I don't see him doing that. He's got a big old plot of land, right? I think in Delco. I think right by the city in Delco.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you have money, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, right? You move. I don't know. That's one thing I like about Kelce is even with all the money and the fame and everything that he gets, he just seems like a normal guy. He's got a wife, got kids, he's got family. I don't know how normal he is, but he seems normal, at least from the outside. I like Jason Kelce, but I do think there's a percentage of people, John, who are a little bit Jason Kelce'd out, whether they're in Philly or not.
Oh, he's
every commercial.
So overexposed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jason. You're so overexposed. Less is more. But then again, I'm overexposed locally. So,
John, you're never overexposed. The people are always looking for more Johnny Mac.
Yeah, I mean, no. Hey, you got to cash in when you can cash in. I don't blame him one bit.
Me neither.
One bit. It's an amazing story. Amazing.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see a lot of people trying to follow their footsteps.
It ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, even little stuff, like he was the first offensive lineman ever to be in the top 20 jersey sales of the NFL ever. People don't buy offensive line jerseys.
Right.
And then he was like number 1 or number 2, I forget. And he was the highest ever. Yeah, I mean, his personality is rare. Usually the offensive line, even now he's not there. I mean, those are the most, for whatever reason, and this is every team, not just Philadelphia. They're the most interesting to talk to. I don't know why, but it always seems to work out. I think you got to be a little bit nutty to play offensive line.
Yeah, you
So
do.
they tend to have some personality.
I can relate. It's like being a goalie in hockey. Everyone tells you you're crazy for being a goalie in hockey. I was a goalie in hockey.
Yeah. Like Nick Gates is one of the most entertaining people in the world. He's just a backup, well, he's been a starter, but just interesting. Interesting guy.
Yeah, the only story I've never met Jason Kelce personally, but a couple weeks ago, not too long ago, I think maybe a month and a half ago, my father was giving away something for a charitable organization at one of our local broadcasts, and it was a sick Jason Kelce portrait and everything, and my dad met up with Jason Kelce, and he was just the coolest dude ever. And he signed the thing, and he wrote a nice note on there for the person we were giving it away to, and so it was cool. I wasn't there for the experience, but my dad said he was a really cool dude, and he asked my dad if he wanted a picture, and my dad's like, no, I don't do pictures. I'm like, you could have gotten a picture with Jason Kelce. I would have posted it up on JAKIB and gotten a little bit of love out of it. But anyway, he didn't do that. So, but anyway, Jason Kelce behind the scenes seems to be a cool guy. So that's good from that perspective. John, you think it's a big game for AJ Brown?
Well, no. I
Why?
mean, from the
No,
perspective.
if Devontae Smith.
Oh, you mean big statistical game? I thought you meant a big game. I don't know.
No, I
Because,
think statistical. I'm waiting for him to break out eventually. John, he's gonna get upset about some of his touches if he doesn't get the ball more soon.
yeah, I mean, he's played at a really high level. I mean, his numbers aren't where people expect because, well, he missed 3 games, but where is he? So I'm looking at 33 receptions for 618 yards. I mean, it's incredibly productive.
Yeah, the average per catch is insane, but 33 catches is
Well, they
not a
don't
lot.
throw the ball. It's that's what you want. If you want to run the ball, you don't throw the ball.
Well, yeah, and you bring
And
up
they're
wide
winning,
receivers get
and
pissed.
that means the number of catches are down. As long as they're winning, everything's fine. But yeah, I mean, that's the counter. These people with, oh, I predicted Saquon to get 2,000 yards, and I brought it up like AJ's going to get 15. It doesn't work that way. If somebody's getting that much, it's taken away from everybody else. And that's why the best teams, nobody's looking at the stat sheet if you're winning games, and generally that's the case because part of it is all receivers want the football, but part of it is nobody wants to be a dickhead when you're winning because you look like a dickhead.
Yep. 106 catches last year, though. He's down to 33.
Well, I mean, then you're not running the ball if you want to get back. So, I mean, you can't have everything, but he's playing at an effective level. That's what matters most. Until the Eagles start throwing the football more. I mean, will he get 100 yards? Yeah, probably. He usually does. But I don't think you're going to see the massive numbers that they've had in the past until they ship gears, if they need to ship gears. And maybe, hopefully, if everything goes to perfection, they don't have to ship gears and they can play the same way. But a lot of numbers for Jalen Hurts, that's the ironic part. When just stat lookers and they see big numbers for quarterbacks or receivers, you're generally losing a lot of games or you're behind in a lot of games, and you might come back to win them. But again, one thing that has never changed, and you know how much it frustrates me over the years, is good teams run the football. Good teams run the football because they're winning, and the numbers say they run the football because they're closing out games. It's the most common sense thing in the world. When you're behind, you're throwing the football. So on a certain week, you can have these astronomical numbers that everybody's raving about. Oh, so-and-so threw for 450 yards and so-and-so threw for caught 3 touchdown passes. How great is that? Well, yeah, but you can't do that consistently. So, bad teams tend to pass the ball more because bad teams are trying to get back in the game and trying to win. It's the most common sense thing in the world, but I don't know why nobody can figure it out. And I'm exaggerating. Everybody knows it in the NFL, but a lot of fans can't figure it out.
Interesting stuff, John. A couple other games that we'll look at real quick. We only have 20 minutes left on the show, and we'll get our predictions, our Eagles predictions coming up at the end of the show. I want everybody to drop their prediction for the game when we do ours, and I will read off a couple of the people in the chat. James Jones, John, he's a resident Commander fan. I guess he made a bet with somebody. He's got the Eagles logo. He's got the Eagles logo on his page. He'll probably have to keep that. I don't know. It's been a week, James. How long you got to keep that sucker on there? Good to see you in here,
If he
brother.
doubles down, he's probably going to have to keep it on there a little bit longer.
Yeah. Mac Main says, have y'all talked about the Steelers don't look so scary? Well, Mac,
I never
why
thought
do you
they
say
were
that? Because they
scary.
didn't look good in the snow?
I never thought they were scary, number one.
No, but they were. I mean, they were 8-2. I think
A
they're
good
on the
team,
schedule. They're
but
a good team.
I know I said pretty consistently, I think Baltimore remains a better team. I'm more disappointed in Baltimore. Pittsburgh's been winning games, but they're not. Yeah, they're not, to me. I've never put them in the Super Bowl contender category. I just,
I do think they're a tough matchup though on any given Sunday. I'm not going to bash them for
they have
losing.
too
last
many.
night with
They
the
have too
snow.
many limitations offensively, and that nonsense they're doing with the quarterbacks that doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't know why they're doing that with Jaden Daniels. I would just stick with Russell Wilson or with not Jaden Daniels, Justin Fields. Yeah. You're right, Mac. It did come. It's crazy the pictures on social media. How like the first half, it's a completely normal looking field, and then you fast forward like a little bit, and it's covered in snow, inches of snow. That was some thick, heavy
that was
snow
a
last night.
blizzard, man. That was
That was some thick, heavy snow. John, couple games that have some implications, I guess, in the NFC. Cowboys, Commanders. I mean, that's a snooze fest, but it does have
anything
implications
with
in
the
the
Cowboys.
NFC.
Well, the Commanders should get back on track. They better get back on track with it because that Cowboys team is oof.
Are we rooting for the Cowboys this weekend, everyone?
You
If they knock
should.
them out,
If you're an
we
Eagles
should.
fan, you should. Yeah, you
Vikings take
certainly
on the Bears, John. That's an NFC matchup. I guess we're just tracking the Vikings there to see how the seeding will
I
go.
mean, yeah,
but
you got the Vikings are kind of like the Steelers for me of the NFC.
I agree.
I mean, they're good. They're a playoff team, I think, but they're not a significant Super Bowl contender. I don't think. And they should beat Chicago, but that's their third straight game on the road. That's never good. And it's a division game. But boy, I have no respect for Chicago. I mean, it's just I don't want to put them at the Jets level, but they're just a terrible organization. Terrible decisions.
They could be Jets level.
I'm not going to go that far, but I never liked Matt Eberflus as a hire for them.
Yeah.
And this will be
He's made himself look like a jackass this year.
This
he makes
will be
Sirianni look like
the worst thing that could happen for the Chicago Bears, to be honest, is to win a game like this, and you get that false hope. Oh, we beat a playoff team, that type of thing, and they buy into it, and they keep Matt Eberflus, and they keep going down the path they're going down. That's the worst thing. If you're a Bears fan, you should want them to lose games like this. But they played Green Bay tough last week. I assume they're going to play Minnesota tough this week. They have some talent. They have some skill position talent.
they have good skill position talent.
But it's just a bad organization.
Yeah, hard to win when you're a bad organization. Cardinals Seahawks. That's a decent NFC
That's
game
a big
there.
one.
Yeah, Cardinals are good. I kind of like the Cardinals right now.
6-4, 5-5, 5-5, 5-5. So anybody can take that division. Probably not going to have a wild card team. So, that's why this game's so big. That if you're talking about, on paper, I look at the matchups and I don't like them for the Rams. But the one thing I do like for the Rams is they need this game. So they're going to be fighting and clawing and scratching in theory. So that is something to keep an eye on. But yeah, every game's big for those NFC West teams because they're all jumbled together.
Yeah, they're all right there.
And I'm rooting for JG. I'll admit that.
Yeah, you were always open about that. He was good to you and good stuff there. 49ers Packers, John. That's an interesting one. That's the 425 game. Both of these, Cardinals Seahawks and 49ers Packers. So two good NFC games in that 425 window. I think the 49ers need this or they're out.
Yeah, they definitely do. Just same thing I'm talking about. I mean, if Arizona beats Seattle, Seattle's in deep trouble. If the 49ers lose, they're in deep trouble. If the Rams lose, they're in deep trouble. Yeah, it's big. Everybody's in it. It's important for every single one of them. Brock Purdy's banged up. He might not even play.
Yeah.
Today's going to be a big day to see if Brock Purdy can play. And they don't have Sam Darnold as a backup anymore. I think Brandon Allen might be their backup. So they're not in a position to do much with their backup quarterback now. So and Green Bay's better probably anyway. So that's a very big game for San Francisco to try.
I agree. I think the Packers are going to win that game. I don't know. I think this 49ers team just seems like there's a spell against them this year or something, man. They can't get anything to go their way. The best game of the week, in my opinion, John, Ravens-Chargers on Monday Night Football. It's at the Chargers home. I wish this game was in Baltimore. I would have loved to see it in Baltimore, but it's a great game. Two great quarterbacks between Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson. Monday Night Football. How do you see that one playing out?
Well, the Ravens better win, man. I'll tell you that.
This is a tough game.
I think Jim Harbaugh has. I always got to get the Harbaughs right. Has the Chargers going in the right direction. Eagles made a practice squad move. That's why. But I'll
What
say
is it? Anything worth sharing here on Birds?
Well, we'll say it in a second. But as far as Baltimore's got to get going, man. I think they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender, but if they lose this game, they're off the table. And then they got to play the Eagles next week. They got to fix their shit. So the battle of the Harbaughs, which happened once in the Super Bowl. John got the best of that one. I think he gets the best of this one, but Jim's got that team going in the right direction. Eagles, which is not a good, one of the things they lost, obviously Bryce Huff, who had wrist surgery. They had a edge rusher by the name of David Ania on the practice squad. He's been there since mid-September, and they cut him today for O'Shawn Mathis.
Linebacker moves. Any reason for linebacker
moves?
Well,
they're edge guys. So they're not off-ball linebackers.
Yeah, right. They're guys you can rotate probably in at the edge. We'll see if they do anything.
But not a good sign that, they need depth at edge rusher, and they cut David Ania, who's been here, for O'Shawn Mathis. So he's listed as a linebacker, but he's 6'5", 250. He's an edge rusher. 6th round pick of the Los Angeles Rams in 2023. And he was with the Patriots for a little bit. So, they need something. And maybe they liked him in the 2023 draft. But, there's some depth concerns at edge rusher for the Eagles right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's get back into this Eagles game. Good slate, pretty decent slate this weekend. Not a brutal slate, not a great slate. Some other things, John, in this game I think that stick out. We hit on most of them. I mentioned A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. We don't know if he's going to play, but those small cornerbacks in the Rams, I think they're ripe to be picked on. So it'll be interesting to see if Jalen can kind of pick up the passing game this week. We talked about the Eagles tackles and them going up against those young edge rushers of the Rams, Jared Verse and Byron Young. We'll see how that matchup plays out. Interior of the Eagles offensive line versus the Rams interior. I'm still taking Eagles O-line there. They got that Braden Fisk, who's pretty good, and then Kobe Turner.
Well, he's very athletic.
Yeah, they each have 5 sacks. That's pretty good for interior guys.
And they're both more, as I said, they're both like, I don't like that matchup for the Rams at all. They're both undersized. Really, and by what I'm talking about, I'm talking really undersized, under 300 pounds, 280-ish range. I mean, you talk about the running game. Good luck. Good luck to those two guys trying to hold up against Landon and Mekhi Becton.
Yeah, Fisk has made some really good plays this year, though, so it'll be interesting to
Well,
see.
he's very athletic, as I
Yeah, he's
said.
very quick, very athletic.
Um,
And then we talked about the secondary already with Cooper Kupp. So pretty good matchups here in this game. I do think it's interesting the way it plays out, where their strength, in a way, John, is kind of going up against our strength with Vic Fangio. It's like McVay versus Fangio. They got the good offensive scheme. We have the good defensive scheme. That'll be an interesting matchup to watch how that plays out. Who kind of gets the better of each other with two good coaches there.
Yeah, and history says Vic's going to get the better of it. He's been sort of the kryptonite for Sean McVay's scheme. As I mentioned, why so many people have so many of the McVay type coaches, offensive coaches, have hired guys who run this scheme, or have specifically looked for guys to hire who run this scheme for a reason. And the reason is, and Sean McVay started it, the reason is he said it's the most difficult defensive scheme to deal with. And that's why they wanted their other side of the ball to run it. Nick Sirianni said the same thing. Doesn't run the same type of offense, but he said the same thing. Found it the most difficult scheme to deal with. So, yeah, history says Vic's going to get the best of him. And he's got more talent. The Eagles have more talent. I don't see why it's not going to be the case this week. And yeah, I think the Eagles are in good shape heading out to Los Angeles.
Good stuff there. Everybody put your predictions in the chat. It's prediction time here on Birds 365. Steve Ike, come on, Steve.
I'm not going 42-3.
42-3. Joe Whip, 34-14. Holy shit.
What are we doing here? Come on, guys.
We need some good predictions on Birds 365 before we give ours. Kevin, oh my God. What is it? 38-21. Everybody's predicting an Eagles blowout.
Come on. Now, what makes you think this team's going to score 38 points?
Gang sounds like he's been listening to John McMullen for 4 years. Look at him. I don't do score predictions.
Yeah, good for you, Dang. I'm forced to do them. Otherwise,
I will force John to make a prediction. 24-20. That's all right. I like that. 28-23.
There we go.
Anthony, 64.
That's more realistic. That's
30-20. That's not a bad score right there. I think that could be realistic if the Eagles are able to get the lead late in the game. 34-17, not bad. 31-24, 27-20, 24-17 from our resident Commander fan.
Anybody pick the Rams? Boy, I might pick the Rams just because nobody's picking the Rams.
Oh, you can't let that sway you.
I think it's
Eagles fans is picking the Eagles, and that's going to make you pick.
I think it's ludicrous that nobody picked the Rams. So.
I don't see one Ram. Oh, here we go. Do I have a Rams pick? Where was that? Yep, Josh B.
All right,
Rams.
Good for Josh.
This was before you said this. This was 2 minutes ago.
Josh
Rams,
saved
21-14.
me. Josh saved me. Yeah. All right, now I can go back to picking the Eagles. Now, I don't think it'll be easy by any stretch, but I do like the matchup from a standpoint of, like I said, one of the strengths, people look at it and they say, oh, Kobe Turner's a pretty good player. As you mentioned with Braden Fisk, very athletic, all right, good luck. Good luck trying to play that against Landon and Mekhi Becton. I just don't like styles make fights. I don't like the Rams style against the Eagles. The Rams will be the one who have to use the silent count on the road more than the Eagles. That helps as well. But I don't like the way this offense is playing as a whole, as a group from the Eagles' perspective. I think it might be similar to what it has been. Play poorly offensively, and then you wear on them late and you win the game that way. I'm looking more toward that direction. It'll probably end up being a 26-17 game, Eagles.
I like that. 26-17. You only have the Rams putting up 17. So Johnny Mac, I'm feeling like you got some optimism on this defense, man. You're liking this defense.
Vic Fangio's in Sean McVay's head long before he came to Philadelphia. Long before. Years, 4 teams ago for Vic.
I wish they let you guys talk to the opposing coach. They used to do that, didn't they?
Yep. Every week we
That
used to get to
sucks
talk
that they got
to
rid of that. Why the hell would they get rid of that? That is so stupid to get rid of.
Young coaches don't want to do it. You know, guys like Andy, he would still do it. Mike McCarthy, he would still do it.
I don't care what the young coaches say. What, now you're a young coach and you win a couple of games, you can come in and dictate what
they're egomaniacs. Yeah. They don't have time. They don't have time for a 10-minute conference call. And I will say, you know, a lot of media, because of the way things have gone in this industry, like most cities don't have, well, nobody has the contingent of media that Philadelphia does. So for us, it's like it's a big deal because we got a bunch of people will be there for the conference call, you know, double digits. In other cities, you might have one guy, 2 guys, and sometimes nobody would show up. And so when that happens, they take advantage of it and they say, well, you know, half of the time there's nobody there. We don't want to do this anymore. And they take advantage of it. Whereas cities that have legitimate media contingents, you know, it's a big deal. And, you know, now it's lost in the sauce. But guys like Mike McCarthy, Andy, I totally respect because they not only did it, they knew it was part of their jobs. They took it somewhat seriously. And yeah, that it's disappointing when others don't see that.
That shouldn't be the case. You should
And the next credit, he would do it when asked.
Come on, NFL. It's fucking stupid. All right, my prediction, John, for this game, I got the Philadelphia Eagles winning 30-24. I think the Birds put some points on the board late, as they've been doing consistently. I think Matthew Stafford and the Rams offense get some points early. Not too many, but I think they have a similar start to like the Bengals, where they're able to come out. Their game plan coming in will work. Vic will make the adjustments and start to lock them down. And I think the Birds will pull away.
I could see bad first drive for the Eagles defense.
That's kind of what I'm thinking here. And they'll get down, and I think it'll be a little bit of a dogfight in those middle couple quarters. And then I think the Birds will take the lead late and won't give it back up. So I have the Philadelphia Eagles winning 30-24, a 6-point win over this Rams team. I don't think the Rams are going to get many points more than that. They'll be lucky, I think, if they get 24. But we'll see how the game goes out. Had a couple good predictions in here. Big thanks to Keith, who says the #1 morning show. I agree, Keith. The best morning show on YouTube and all of Philadelphia if you love the Philadelphia Eagles. So big thanks to you guys for making it that, by the way. John, good show today, man. What's on your agenda on this Friday?
Going down to Novacare as soon as I get off here. You know, big practice day. We'll get to see if Devontae Smith is out there. Nick Sirianni talks before practice. We get a little bit of extra time with the head football coach and the off the record standpoint. So Fridays are always a big day.
Good stuff there. Johnny Mac, when does the Eagles head out there? They head out there tomorrow, probably fly out tomorrow.
Saturday.
They always do that. I just didn't know if it changed with sometimes they try and manipulate the time zone thing. Didn't they do that for Denver one year where they
there's a lot of teams now have settled into the less time you're there. The best indication are the European games, in Brazil this year. But, it used to be they would go in way early and do different things to try to get used to the but now they figured out that it's best to suck it up and just go late and get out.
It's funny. I'm more of the kind of guy that would like to get out there and get settled and then maybe even get a practice in out there. So you but I get why they do it the way they do it now. It makes sense, but
NFL teams, man, they are in and out. They don't sit around. Nobody's going out to dinner. There's no sightseeing.
Yeah.
They are in and out.
Yes, they are. Real quick before we let you go, John. A couple super chats. Caleb says Eagles win convincingly, 10 to 14 points. That'd be good, Caleb. He follows up and says offense is fine, just out of rhythm on the early downs. I believe in Kellen and number 1. I've seen the growth with them as long as we keep 26 in it early for the most part. I don't know how they're going to stop 26. We'll see what they can do against him this week. Pass game will come along more. We see flashes. Caleb, we need consistency, but I do appreciate the super chats, and I think you're right about your approach to the game. Thank you, brother. We appreciate Bo Daxter says, Zander, imagine getting settled in Brazil. Well, maybe that's a good point. LA is a little different, Bo Daxter. You can go out there to, millionaires.
It's not as different as it used to be, but it is different. Yes.
Yeah, a little different. You're right about that. But, they can prop up in Millionaires Row and relax and have the sunshine and the bullshit and all that. All right, John, good show, man. Great shows this week. I thought we crushed it. Covering this game and recapping what the Eagles were able to do versus the Commies last week. 8-2. We'll see if they can get to 9-2.
Boy, they should call them the Washington football team.
I think the football team is better than the Commanders. I'm not going to lie.
It is.
Now the hockey team is. Have you seen that? The hockey is taking that approach. There's a new hockey team this year in Utah.
Yeah, the Utah Hockey Club. I don't know.
And I'm like, pick a damn name. What the hell? They couldn't pick a name.
Well, that's a soccer thing. Which makes some sense from a soccer standpoint.
Yeah, it's all right, I guess. Pick a name. Come on. All right, John, good show, man. We'll talk to you on the pregame show. Not until Sunday night. Going to be a late pregame show, 7 p.m. pregame show.
Sunday night, the bane of my existence. But everybody enjoy the game. I will see you then.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Hit that like button on your way out. Ooh, Utah Yeti. That's a good one, Jason. Thank you guys for being here. Hit that like button on your way out. We will catch you next time on Birds 365. Enjoy the weekend, everybody.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.